Evening, everyone. Welcome to this month's Stowe Talks. My name's Ashley. I'm one of the partners of the firm, and we are dealing with navigating the complexities of mortgages in divorce this evening. Luckily for us, we've got Miranda Hickey from Meet Margo. Evening, Miranda. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So, Meet Margo are a tech-first mortgage brokerage, and they are coming to talk to us today about all things mortgages when going through a divorce, breakup, that kind of thing. What's important to note from the beginning, this is not financial advice. If you want specific financial advice about your scenario, you need to take that individually with an expert such as Miranda. This is for information only this evening. But what we'll do is just sort of a bit of housekeeping. Any questions, there's a Q&A function, there's a chat function. Please put anything in there that you want. Myself and Miranda will get to those at the end. But for now, I'll hand over to Miranda, who's got a lovely presentation for us, and I'll let her get on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, first point of call, let me share my screen again. Bear with me whilst I battle with tech, as always. So, are we good? Perfect. So, as Ashley said, this evening we'll be covering off navigating the complexities of mortgages in divorce. Through this, I will be covering kind of the main considerations when considering your mortgage when going through a separation. As Ashley correctly said, it's very broad information here. Some of it will apply to yourself, some of it won't. So to get kind of personal advice suited to your circumstances, absolutely reach out to an advisor like ourselves where we can advise appropriately. So, first point of call, all about me. So I'm Miranda, and I've been advising scarily for nearly a decade. I started my career back in the day with one of the largest firms, went self-employed after my own little ones, and for the last 2 years I've been with Meet Margo. During that time, I've had the absolute pleasure of working with all sorts of clients, and absolutely through that, homeowners going through separation comes up really frequently. Hence why I'm on today, just to share that knowledge and experience with yourselves. So Meet Margo. Already fight. So Meet Margo. As Ashley said, we are a tech-first mortgage brokerage. As it correctly says at the top, we're not just a brokerage, we're award-winning now, which is very exciting after 2 years. We exist because our mission is to help women who face unique financial shocks throughout life. So things like pay gaps, career breaks, wealth gaps. We're here to guide and help women back on that path to home ownership. So home is often the biggest asset shared. Deciding who keeps it and how is one of the most emotional and complex parts of separation. We completely appreciate that family home is absolutely more than just bricks and mortar. It's often the biggest shared asset within the partnership, and it represents that stability and the continuity, especially when there are children involved. So that's why when there's potentially a separation coming into play, understanding your options early, getting it right early, and avoiding any complications is our biggest advice when it comes to considering separations. So during today's session, I will cover off the following areas. So how mortgages work during divorce. We'll look at how lenders assess affordability. Transferring the family home into a sole name, and the importance of how mortgage brokers like ourselves can support throughout that. So how do mortgages work in divorce? Maybe you're going through a divorce now, it's something you may be considering, or maybe you've got a friend who's going through it and you want a bit further information on supporting them. The question we get at advisors is, where do I start? What do I need to be thinking about? What are my first steps? What does this look like for me? So one of the first areas that I always talk to my clients about is your mortgage affordability. A mortgage is a credit commitment, it's a debt, and the way lenders work out how much you can borrow is all about mortgage affordability. So this is the main consideration is your plan to potentially keep the family home or potentially buy somewhere else, is this going to be affordable in the eyes of the mortgage lender? How do lenders assess affordability? So this is where they will look at what you've got coming in. So this is your income. This can be earned, employed, self-employed, other streams of income, benefit income, maintenance income. I'll cover off in a bit more detail throughout tonight's session. And also what's going out. So your credit commitments from loans, car finance, credit cards, and they'll also take into consideration any dependents. So any financial dependents, whether that be a relative or children, and with children, they'll also take into account things like childcare. So why affordability matters? As I mentioned before, so you might be considering buying your ex-partner out of your current home, so you can retain that in your sole name. Refinancing in your name only, so it might just be you just want to transfer the existing mortgage into your name only, or actually you're looking for that fresh, clean slate and you're looking to purchase somewhere new. Knowing your affordability gives you that realistic idea of what is possible, what's within budget, and your next steps. Because sometimes affordability then guides those decisions. It might mean actually, no, I can't mean taking on this home. I am going to look at moving. So sometimes knowing your affordability gives you that starting point and narrows down your options when considering what is next. So let's delve a little bit deeper into how lenders assess affordability. Now, there is no one size fits all. It's very much based on circumstantials, and this is where our broker knowledge and experience can come in as well. As a mortgage broker, we have access to a whole panel of lenders. Each of those lenders then have their own affordability assessment. So most lenders do offer up to 4.5 times your annual income. This is a guide and it's not a fixed rule at all. It's just kind of the industry average that we kind of initially work towards. In some cases, this can be a lower calculation, and in other cases, it can be a higher multiple. It all depends on a number of factors, things like your loan to value, so how much you're looking to borrow in relation to the property value, can also influence this calculation. Different lenders have different calculations, so if your affordability is successful with one, it doesn't mean that that's going to happen across the board. It could be successful elsewhere. So it is very much a rule of thumb. That's the first question I always get is how much can I borrow? Is it 4 times my income? And I always answer, well, yes, but there's other factors that come in. So what will lenders look at? Earned incomes. This is your salary, your self-employed income. So with your earned income, this can be permanent full-time roles. It can be fixed-term contracts, part-time income, 0 hours contracts. Any earned income, lenders will include it with different rules. Self-employed income, absolutely, lenders are more than happy to consider this as well. Most lenders needing 2 years. Some lenders are more lenient and can consider 1 year of self-employment, depending what you were doing previously. I'm just going to skip down to other income like maintenance payments and some benefits. So lenders will absolutely look to include this where possible. Maintenance income, whether this be spousal or child maintenance, lenders can consider both. Again, this is where lenders look for consistency, so they'll be looking for kind of 3 to 6, in some cases a bit longer, track record of the payments being consistently received for that to be included, but absolutely it's something that they can look to pull in. And then benefit income as well, so anything from your child benefit, any universal credit, disability allowance. Again, as long as we can provide evidence of those payments, a track record, lenders are happy to include those in as well. So I think some people kind of easily disregard that income, and we do get often surprised when we can pull it all in. So always kind of if you are speaking to mortgage brokers, disclose everything, and they'll work off that and see what they can do for you. Outgoings. So lenders will take into consideration any financial commitments that you've got outgoing, things like your loans, student loans, credit cards, childcare, car finance agreements. If you're paying maintenance yourself, these kind of commitments all get taken into consideration. in essence, the more financial commitments that you've got in your name, this may affect how much you're able to borrow. Again, it is no one size fits all when it comes to outgoings. There's no kind of definite rule how much a £5,000 loan would affect your affordability by. It's very much based on lender to lender assessment. And again, something that mortgage brokers can absolutely help you with. So how would you work out how much you can borrow? So I'm going to cover off two options here. You can either look at it into it yourself or working with mortgage broker experts like ourselves. So if I were to be looking into this myself, I would start by looking at online mortgage calculators. So your good online search, mortgage calculators, it will ask the information that I've just ran through there, things like your income and your outgoings. Obviously, it goes without saying, to get an accurate result, make sure you're putting in accurate figures. Check lender websites. So lender websites will detail what they can and can't include. So it'll give you a guideline about things like benefit income. Comparison sites have calculators these days as well, so that can be a good starting point. Reviewing your credit report. So again, just making sure you are aware exactly what is showing on your credit report in terms of balances, what's showing on there in terms of any potential previous historic credit issues, again, need to be taken into account. Even if you're really confident, it's just worth double checking the figures on there, as essentially that is how the lender is going to assess your outgoings as well. They will be looking at your credit reports. Fees, so depending on lender to lender, know kind of the fees that are involved with their different mortgage products. So again, comparison sites are really good for this these days. There are different kinds of fees, but make sure you factor those in. Some can be added to your mortgage borrowing. Again, just be aware that in doing so, you are then charged interest on them. So just something to be aware of when you're considering and having a look online. Just make sure you know all the ins and outs of the mortgage product that you're looking at. Working with a mortgage broker like ourselves. So essentially, everything I've mentioned there, we would do on your behalf. We would take some initial information from you in terms of your income and outgoings. We would do the affordability calculations. So as I mentioned, we've got a whole panel of lenders, each having their own affordability assessment. It's our job to work through all of their calculators and see where we can get affordability where you need it to be. In some cases, that's absolutely fine across the board. In other cases where affordability is a little bit tight, so if you're trying to maximise how much you can borrow, that's where we'll put in the legwork. And we've got that knowledge of experience of understanding lenders' criteria and who are more generous with affordability and who will take more of your benefits than others. So we have that knowledge and experience to know kind of, right, if we're maximising affordability, where would you need to go? We'll tailor the advice to your situation. So we talk through your preferences for your mortgage, your long-term aims, your long-term goals, your attitude to risk on the mortgage market. So when we're looking at the different mortgage products, we can tailor our advice and look at the mortgage products in line with those aims and your attitude to risk moving forward. Supporting with paperwork. So the good old adult to-do list of collecting your paperwork together. So we'll, from the outset, let you know what is required, how many months pay slips, how many bank statements, which letter we need for that benefit income. So we'll tell you from the outset what we need. If we were then to support you with the full mortgage application, what we do is we package up an application. So before we send it to a lender, we know what that lender needs. We get it all together, we send it to the lender to get it right that first time, to minimise any backwards and forwards on questions and communications. And obviously, if anything further was raised, we'd keep you posted and let you know if there anything was additional was needed. Credit issues and financial ties. So as we mentioned before, checking your credit report, knowing what's on there, any credit issues, historical, whether it's one late payment 5 years ago, something last month, tell your mortgage advisor. They'll have to take that into account because anything on your credit report in the last 6 years will be seen by the mortgage lenders. We then know, again, from knowledge and experience and access to lenders' criteria, where we can then make sure that the lender is going to be considerate of the information showing on your credit report. So disclosing everything from the outset, and we'll ask for a review of your credit file as well, to make sure that, again, we're taking into account anything that needs to be first time round. So, sorry, to be fair, I jumped ahead of myself here. What does an advisor need? So, income details, all your figures in terms of income and outgoings, and proof of income we would ask for as well. Monthly outgoings, balance on your credit cards, balance on your loans, how much you pay in childcare, and then your basic info, so things like your dates of birth, your address history, just for that accurate credit assessment and information on any credit issues. On the right here, we've got kind of an example of an initial document checklist here. So ID, to make sure we're speaking and credit assessing on the right people. Proof of your address, again, to support that, your ID assessment there. Pay slips, so when employed, 3 months pay slips is typically enough. If there's any alternative income, so things like contractors or 0 hours contracts is typical, then maybe 6, 9, 12 months pay slips might be needed. But again, once we know your scenario, we would then advise what is needed there. If you're self-employed, as mentioned, most lenders need 2 years of your SA 302 or tax year calculation and overview. Again, we would let you know what's needed there. Bank statements, last 3 months, so showing your pay being credited, current mortgage and utilities being repaid, and then your most recent credit report, so we can see exactly what's on there for consideration moving forward. So, how do I transfer the home into my sole name moving forward? Oh, sorry, I'm behind myself now. So this is a really common question that we get all the time of how does this even work? Am I buying the property again? Am I transferring it? How does this work? So there we go. Transferring the property into one person's name, legally removing one party from the mortgage or the ownership, so the remaining person becomes the sole owner. This can happen as part of a divorce settlement or by an agreement by both parties. So if you decide that the property is being transferred to one person, it's both a financial and a legal process, and both parts need to line up. So when we are removing and popping the mortgage and the property into someone's sole name, both parts run along side by side, and at completion, so when the new mortgage funds are released, the legal work also needs to be complete. So from that day when the new mortgage starts solely in one person's name, the property is then legally owned in that one person's name as well. So when remortgaging into your own name, you will need the legal work alongside to complete that transfer into your own name as well. Let me just check. So yeah, I'm going to move to the next slide just because I'm going to jump ahead of myself here, just for some considerations. I'm just going to jump to this legal bit here because just when I mentioned that before, that need to run alongside. So the legal part, the solicitor will handle all of the transfer. So they will advise you of all the legal side in terms of paperwork to transfer that property into your sole ownership. They will update the land registry records as well. And when there's a mortgage involved, they will handle the switchover of that mortgage. So say you potentially have a joint mortgage initially, at completion, the mortgage is going to be in your sole name. They will deal with the transfer of that and the completion. So repaying that previous mortgage and releasing the funds of the new one. So they handle all the process of the funds as well. If you are releasing equity, so on the top right here, I've got some information about releasing equity. So if you're buying out a partner, so you might be remortgaging, covering your current mortgage and increasing your mortgage affordability allowing to then pay the equity owed to your ex-partner. That equity that's transferred to your ex-partner is also through the solicitor as well. So they will transfer the transfer of all the funds, so they've got that record through. Just to touch on this top right section here, remortgage versus release of equity. So remortgaging is taking out a new mortgage with a new lender. Releasing equity with your current lender can also be a possibility as well. So you might increase your current lender, your current borrowing with your existing lender, and also do the legal side of removing the other person of the mortgage. Again, as a mortgage advisor, we would weigh up these options, whether it's more economical to completely take out a new mortgage with a new lender, or if it's more economical to increase your borrowing with your existing lender. So we would help weigh up this option here and what is possible depending on circumstances. sorry, I'm really flipping around this page here, but to the top left, so can one person afford the home? So as we've already touched on, must prove affordability to the new mortgage lender in your sole name. Lenders will assess the income, financial dependence, your debts and your credit history. And then if, unfortunately, if affordability weren't to stack up, then that would be the case that we could advise, right, your mortgage affordability is X, and you can take that on to then go look at your options in terms of selling the property and buying elsewhere. So you know kind of what your budget is then looking at a new property. We can help you work out, so if you were to sell your property for X amount, your current mortgage has Y on it, your equity is your difference there. Other considerations I would make, so your equity is your difference between your sale price and what is left on your mortgage. Please take into account if your mortgage has any exit fees. So if you're breaking any fixed deals early, those exit fees need to be taken into consideration, and how that equity is going to be split. Legally, if you depending how you legally purchase the property, it might be a 50-50 split. There might be a different percentage there depending if kind of a declaration of trust was put in place to start with. So how that equity will be split as well, just conversations and agreements regarding that. And we can help you do those calculations as well, because when there's lots of figures involved, we can help you just confirm that you're looking at the right figures and work out, right, from your sale, if you're going to walk away with X, that could be your deposit for the new property, or you've got equity plus some savings, you want to use those as well. So we can work out from your new mortgage, you can afford X amount, you've then got equity and savings of this amount, that takes you to your onwards purchase. Then associated costs in the bottom right. So obviously with an onwards purchase, potentially there'll be stamp duty to be paid, as well as your legal fees for the sale of yours, the purchase of the new property as well. From a mortgage perspective, application fees. So when we look at the mortgage market, we would advise on the most economical product, and if that product had any fees associated. The most common things we see are lender product arrangement fees, they're typically called, and we would only ever recommend products like that if it was the most economical option. Some lenders then charge for a valuation on the new house. So again, depending on the lender, to be fair, most lenders these days it is free, but some lenders charge £100 to £200 depending on the purchase price of the new property. So just potentially be aware of, but your mortgage advisor would be able to confirm all of those details for you. Sorry. So just to run through the importance of taking expert advice and what to take into consideration and what to look out for. So a few just initial points we've popped down here. So understanding how we're paid. So when you're speaking to mortgage advisors, are they fee free? Do they charge you a fee? All mortgage brokers get paid by the lender once your mortgage starts. That should be outlined in the illustration, etc., that they will provide you with, just understanding how we're paid. Check their access to lenders. So mortgage brokers and our access to lenders all depends on how they're registered, if they're part of a network, if they're directly authorised with lenders. We do have access to different lenders from one broker to another, so just understanding what their access is. Have they got a comprehensive view of the market? Are they pulling into account kind of all options available to you? Looking at the advisor's experience and their knowledge and their area of expertise, is it best suited for you? So if you're kind of a more specialist client, potentially credit issues, is the advisor clued up in this area? Do they know kind of do they know where to go? Have they got the right experience to make sure you're getting the best deal? Do your homework. So read reviews, talk to friends and family, look online, obviously social media these days, but there's absolutely no harm in shopping around mortgage brokers and finding one that you're comfortable with, that you trust. Then just make sure you feel comfortable with who you're proceeding with, because obviously it's a very in-depth process and you want to be comfortable kind of with who you're proceeding with, and they're going to got your best interests in mind and you're disclosing all that information. So on that, obviously don't just rely on kind of word of mouth and who family used 10, 15 years ago. Make sure you're using who you're comfortable with. Just wanted to skip back to the beginning, and I should probably have mentioned here. So Meet Margo ourselves, we are fee free, and we don't charge our clients any fees. Um, just to touch on this, some brokerage, their fees can vary for anything from like £200 up to 1,000. So just make sure that if they do charge fees, just make sure you are aware and obviously factor that into your calculations when you're working out all the costs of everything. And then I was just checking. Oh, so any questions? Sorry, I've gone through that really fast. I'm sure there's some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miranda. That's so informative. I mean, in my day-to-day work, it's 99% of my cases have a family home. This is naturally going to come up, right? Affordability of one person purchasing the share from the other, or looking for an onward mortgage for another purchase. So it's so important. So thank you so much for taking the time. Bless you.
No, absolutely fine. I can see a few questions in the chat box. Are you okay for me to run through a
Yes.
few of those
So
out?
what I'll do is I've got them listed down here.
Oh, do
So
you?
I'll read them for you.
Thank
You
you.
crack on. All right.
Perfect, yeah.
So the first one was, is affordability based on net income or gross?
Gross. So affordability is based on gross income. Don't get me wrong, lenders are interested in your net income. So more common these days, we do see salary sacrifices for things like cars or private medical insurance. Lenders need to take that into account and know what is actually paid into your bank each month. But the main affordability calculation is based on your gross income.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Is it possible to get a mortgage if you currently have one, but you're on a debt management plan?
Okay, so potentially, and there's just a few extra questions regarding this. So there are specialist lenders who can consider mortgage applications when on a debt management plan. It is subject to how long that plan's been in place, how long is left on the plan. That plan will be taken into account from an affordability perspective. So the monthly payment on that plan is taken into account. And it's subject to the conduct of the rest of the credit file outside of that debt management plan. So is the rest of the credit file being kept up to date and all the other finances covered? If you are applying whilst on a debt management plan, it will be specialist lenders. There are a few specialist lenders who can help with this. So with that comes slightly higher interest rates. We then have access to lenders who can consider clients who have had a debt management plan from day one that's finished. So if it's a case that you're nearly at the end of it, potentially waiting to get to the end of that debt management plan will open a few more doors. But in short, yes, subject to a few extra additional information regarding the debt management plan.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly sensible. And I think in any circumstance, this probably goes for anybody, it's worth asking the question, right? I certainly wouldn't, close the door just because you think that it's going to close the door. And I think speaking to someone like Miranda is perfect because she knows way more than, say, I do as to what all the options could be.
And in that scenario as well, we do have it really common. People just presume that they've got this in place, that they just can't get a mortgage. And we have people coming to us and they're like, I'm really sorry, I think I'm wasting time. And you're never wasting our time at all. That's exactly what we're here for. And we have lots of clients where actually we do have that call and I say, right, okay, today we're a little bit early to do anything, but come February 2026, this will be paid off. These credit issues are now this old and this opens these doors. So it then leaves our clients with that plan of action, right? In between now and then, I need to do X, Y, Z, and then we can revisit our options. So absolutely never presume that that circumstance is going to count you out. We can make that plan of action for when we can move things forward for you.
Yeah, I think what I see in my role is a sort of a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to do this because. And just ask those questions to someone like Miranda or anybody who knows that area, because like you say, even if you have to wait so many months, or you have to see payments have been coming into your bank account for 6 months before you can then move on to a different stage, at least you've got a plan. So thank you for that, Miranda. I think people will be glad to hear that doesn't immediately discount them from any sort of future discussion.
No, definitely.
Okay, right. What impact does age have on the mortgage if you're, say, 55 plus?
Okay, so age is absolutely taken into consideration. Lenders have rules of how many years you can take your mortgage over, and they have rules regarding the maximum age you can take your mortgage to. Generally, across the market, most lenders will let you borrow up to age 75 as long as you were paying into a pension. However, as you approach retirement age, they are more considerate and more interested in that pension. So they would want to see potentially as you get closer to retirement, your contributions obviously on your pay slip, for instance, if you're employed, or your contributions from your account if self-employed. They can potentially ask for pension statements and projections to see kind of going into retirement, what income that will provide to support those last few years of your mortgage. So age 55, we can still look at a good kind of anything up to a 20-year term, really. Some lenders do go a bit further, but again, that's a bit more specialist as well. But no, 55-year-old, absolutely no concerns in terms of age about getting a mortgage.
Yeah, it's just like any case. It's, your age is a factor, and
Yeah,
there are lots of other ones. So
absolutely.
again, you don't want to discount yourself because you feel like you've got to a certain age. That's it's
Absolutely.
certainly not what I see in my role. I don't say to people, "Oh, don't go and look," because it's like you must go and ask those questions.
Yeah, definitely. And also understanding, again, just understanding your options that actually, no, I can do this, or actually
Right.
it might, because the closer you get to obviously retirement age, it can shorten the term. So most lenders will do a 35, 40-year term these days, but when you're potentially 55, 60, we'll be looking at a 20 or 15-year term. So obviously the shorter term with your borrowing can drive up those monthly payments. Again, having the conversation and looking at the figures, that gives you a plan of action of actually, I want to spend X amount a month because of the term. That means I need to cap my borrowing at X amount. You go off and shop the market based on that budget. So absolutely, you're right in saying just ask the questions and we can provide the information for that plan of action.
Absolutely. Right. Probably very wide-reaching question, and probably
Yeah.
difficult for you to very sum down on. What sort of people are considered high risk?
So higher risk applicants are, yeah, you're right in saying actually that's quite a broad answer, but it's
Wide, isn't it?
just to initial thoughts are people with credit issues. Higher risk is generally depending on contract income. So if you've been self-employed for just a year, that is slightly higher risk than if you had 2 years. Basic mortgage lenders love consistency when it comes to income. So you're slightly higher risk if you've got that 1 year versus two when self-employed. It can be to do with your deposit levels on a property as well. So if you were doing a 5% deposit compared to a 25% deposit, that's higher risk for the lenders. If they were ever to repossess the property and the property value has fallen, their risk there is that they're not going to get their money back. So there are lots of different areas where the risk factor changes. But they're kind of the main ones that would pop to head to start
Yeah,
with.
yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? I mean, it's the kind of stuff that you'd expect, really. But I think self-employment is a very wide-reaching one. I think so many people are self-employed now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. They've gone out for their own and they're starting up and they're doing all that great stuff, but they need to be, you're quite right. Banks want that consistency, that
Yeah.
security. Like, are we going to get our money back? So
Mhm.
naturally, the longer you've done that, the lower risk you become. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, once again, it's that sort of, this is going to be sort of the theme for the whole talk, I think, is just like, just go and ask about your individual circumstance, because there's only ever so much myself and Miranda are going to be able to sort of give you without going through your individual circumstances.
Yeah.
So, yeah, after you, Miranda, go on.
No, 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 I still agree. Yeah, absolutely. It is really broad as well, and especially when separation then comes into it as well. Because a lot of our conversations with our clients are guided on kind of what their expected plans are for that separation, which are very much circumstantial. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
asking and speaking is the main
perfect.
takeaway.
Okay. As an advisor, do you do the submissions for the actual application?
We do, yes. So, sorry, I saw that question, and I'm on client when I'm on client calls, I always say we, and I
Yes, yes.
always say, so absolutely. So, as a mortgage broker, that's our job. We would First of all, talk to you, understand your circumstances and your preferences for your new mortgage. I would then go away, research the mortgage market, come back to you with the most economical option for your mortgage. If you're happy with what I find, I would then process that application to the lender. So I would handle the full submission to the lender. Mortgage lenders then assess the application as well as valuing the property. So average application assessment at the moment, we're looking at around 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the lender and how quickly that valuation is booked in. During that time, so myself and the team at Meet Margo, we would keep you updated as any milestones are met, if there's any further queries raised. Once agreed, the mortgage offer is then valid for 6 months. But we would keep in touch with you during that time as the legals are completed to get the completion date set. If anything were to change circumstantially on your side or on the mortgage market, we would keep in touch during that time as well. So we would manage the mortgage application process from that first call with you to right to the funds getting released to when that mortgage goes through.
Perfect. And there's another question here that sort of runs quite parallel to that. So I will go back to the question before whoever asked, but I'm going to jump to this one. In that it's, if I have a mortgage offer, but the deadline runs out before the financial settlement is agreed, will I be able to get the same offer when I reapply if my circumstances have changed?
Okay, so again, it depends on what has changed and it will depend on your lender. So depending on your mortgage lender, some lenders do allow offer extension. So some can extend for a month. The very maximum is up to 3 with some lenders. So you could look at an offer extension. To grant that, though, most lenders do ask, has there been any change in circumstances? So if circumstances have changed in terms of your income is lower or any credit commitments are higher, then that might affect things like affordability. So it just depends on what's changed, if they could then extend the offer. If you need to reapply, then those new circumstances would be taken into account for the new application. So it would be a reassessment of your new circumstances and subject to assessment. Sorry, just to jump backwards, but if you are consulting your current mortgage offer lender about extension, some lenders would want you to choose a new product based on today's market offering as well. So just be conscious, if you locked in a rate a little while ago, they might require you to change to today's rates, which might be slightly different. So those are the questions I'd be asking, but the answer to that would be based on kind of what's changed and how that impacts the application moving forward.
Can I take a separate mortgage out before my divorce? I have a deposit from inheritance. I'll let you jump on that first, but I have something to add in there as well. So
Yeah.
you go first, Miranda.
I was going to say Ash might be able to give more light on the legal side of this, but
Yeah.
absolutely, you could apply for a mortgage solely in your name before your divorce goes through. Yeah, that would be fine. From a mortgage point of view, they would just assess yourself and your current circumstances and your onwards purchase, and the inheritance as your deposit, again, absolutely fine as well from a mortgage perspective. We just ask for proof of that.
Yeah, I would imagine that if you've got that inheritance and it's going to mean your mortgage is significantly reduced, again, you're looked at your individual circumstance. So as long as it works to the bank, they'll say, yeah, great. From the legal perspective, do I advise you to invest in a second mortgage or a second property before you've got divorced? No, I don't, right? Because I want everything tied off properly before you get another matrimonial asset. Now, it's unique in that if you purchased another property during your marriage before your divorce was finalised, technically that becomes a matrimonial asset that husband, wife, whatever the situation may be, can have a claim over. Now, that's not immediately into 50-50, needs to be discussed, as part of the entire settlement, and it has to be split. But it's adding a level of risk that I simply don't advise you to do. So my advice there is, take legal advice if you haven't got a lawyer already at that point. But I am going to be sort of put my neck on the line here and say, I would hold fire on buying anything else until your divorce and the financial side is completely closed off. It's safer, it protects you, and I can only see risk in doing it before you finalised your divorce. So from the legal side, that's where I would come across. So just please be careful with that decision. I know in some circumstances you might feel trapped. I need to get out now. I don't want to live with this person. I want to buy something else. I've got the money to do it. Just make sure that if you've got a divorce lawyer, you are checking that with them first, that they understand what you're doing, that perhaps it's made very clear to the other side what you're going to do, so that it's all done properly and that you reduce that risk to yourself. All right. Okie dokie. I apply for a joint borrower sole proprietor mortgage. Will I be penalised with a higher rate?
No. So some of the most competitive lenders on the market offer joint borrower sole proprietor, obviously subject to meeting lending criteria. So no, it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be subject to higher rates. It just depends on meeting that lending criteria. Main consideration regarding kind of joint borrower sole proprietor is who is that other person going on the mortgage, as depending on lender, if it's, for instance, kind of in my scenario, if I were to put my mother on the mortgage with me, her age would really restrict my term, which would then drive up the monthly payments. So, but from a rate point of view, no, it doesn't mean that you're automatically looking at higher risk. It just depends again on the circumstances and the ins and outs.
Perfect. Perfect. If someone has a chronic but not life-threatening condition, will that impact my ability to get a mortgage?
No, it wouldn't impact your ability to get the mortgage. It may raise questions if on pay slips, if there's time that you've had any time off. So it could ask questions, and if you're returning to work and the date you return to work, some lenders would require you to be at work if you have had some time off. So it wouldn't affect your ability to get a mortgage, just again, depending on documents and information showing, it might raise a few questions. But no, it wouldn't impact the application itself.
If you are newly married and have to wait for divorce proceedings, is it wise to consider looking at options to change the mortgage into a sole name, or better to wait until the divorce proceedings? Oh, blimey. Probably more for me. So if you're newly married and have to wait for divorce proceedings, so the marriage, I assume, therefore, has been very short. You have to, at this stage, you have to wait 1 calendar year before you can get divorced after you've been married. Is it wise to consider looking at options to change the mortgage into a sole name, or better to wait? The legal advice is anything that you do with any assets that could be considered marital, so house, joint accounts, anything like that, it is best to get it all tied off properly before you do anything. And what I mean by that is, if it's a very short marriage and the house is in joint names and you agree that you're going to buy other party out for, say, £20,000, you give them the money, they transfer you the house into your sole name, everything seems great. The problem you've got is, if you go through a financial settlement, a judge can say, one, that's not actually fair on the other party, so actually now I'm going to make you sell it and maybe give more money. Or they can do the opposite. And it's just dangerous not to do those things without checking exactly what the likely outcome is. So whilst you can do it while you're waiting to get divorced, I would still have a lawyer go through it, make sure that they've got all the information in front of them that they need to tell you whether it's intrinsically fair. But I think in most cases, they're probably going to tell you to wait, do it as part of your financial settlement on that divorce, just so, once again, that risk is drastically reduced for you. Because the last thing we would want is to go, right, it's great, off you go, and then somebody comes along at the end and a judge goes, no, I'm not happy with that. So actually, and in worst case scenario, they can undo the transfer of that house. And it's a lot of headache that you don't need. So I understand the want to get on with it and move on. And I'm not saying you can't, but please take legal advice first and make sure that if you are going to do that, that your lawyer advises you as to separation agreements until you can get divorced, declarations of trust, all these kind of things that at least give you some legal backing if the other side then decide to muck around later down the line. So again, it's a specific legal point that you do need to take legal advice on. So please be careful with that. If the house is on the market and the fixed rate is coming to an end, should I get a new mortgage? I don't know when the house will be sold. Mortgage is in both names. Extra money is needed to extend the lease. Should this be added to the joint mortgage?
So,
Blimey.
first point on that. So the fixed rate's coming to an end. Absolutely prepare for that and start to look at your options in plenty of time.
Mm.
If your fixed rate's coming to an end, if you did nothing, the mortgage will then go on to the lender's standard variable rate, which are anything between 6.5% and 8%, depending on the lender. So check that out. If the house is on the market, yeah, the house is on the market. So typically lenders, so if you were to remortgage to a new lender, they will not allow to do so when the house is on the market. So in this scenario, the option that we commonly look at is what can your existing lender provide for you here? Most lenders for existing clients, they will still be able to offer their product range between 2, 3, 5 year fixed rates, but also tracker rate products. Your fixed rates will come with exit fees. So if you were to fix in for another 2, 3, or 5 years, property did sell, you have to be aware of those exit fees. Your exit fees are lowest on your 2 years compared to your 5. The tracker rates, depending on the lender, typically come without exit fees. So in this scenario, if we can access a product with your current lender to follow on from the expiry of a fixed rate, and you need that flexibility, tracker rates are going to provide that. If you are looking at this with a mortgage broker, they'll talk you through this. If you're doing it directly with the lender, please ask that question, because even on some tracker rates with existing lenders, there are some small exit fees there, so just be aware. The tracker rates are typically much lower than your standard variable rate. So even if it has got a small exit fee, that could still be the most economical option financially in the short term. And then just be aware that if there is an exit fee, factor that into the sale equity when everything does complete. Extra money to extend the lease. So again, it'll depend on your existing lender. So some lenders will allow you to increase your mortgage borrowing whilst the property's on the market. Some won't. So it will depend lender to lender. Actually, you might know the answer better than me, but could they potentially start the undertaking to extend the lease, and when the property sale goes through, that's then complete, and the funds to pay for that come from the equity in the sale, or would that need to be paid for upfront, typically?
It's an unusual one for sure.
Hmm.
And it's not something that I come across a lot, if I'm
Yeah.
completely honest with you. Um, if if you can negotiate that with the other side, that extra money then gets added to the mortgage or gets paid out of another way at the end, that
Yeah.
could be a point of negotiation.
Yeah.
But I would
Make it
imagine that in most circumstances, they're probably going to want that fee up front. But it's a conversation with the bank. They may well say, okay, any fees that we'll now do for this will add on top of the mortgage. I can't, again, it's one of those unique circumstances where
yeah.
it's individual.
Yeah. So
Um,
potentially, yeah, could depending on the lender, increase your mortgage borrowing to cover the fee for the lease, but it's going to be
yeah,
substantial on
it's,
there.
it's again, I think what we've sort of seen over the course of the last hour or so is that it's so specific. Everyone's
Yeah.
scenario is so specific, and someone like Miranda is perfectly placed to say, right, here's your circumstance. This is what we can do, right? Because even like someone like myself, as part of you going through a divorce and all the finances, my job is to get your mortgage capacity. That's the extent of it, right? I have to find out what a bank could lend you. So at that point, I am going to refer to someone like Miranda with all the information that she needs, and she can come back to me with a figure. So I then use that figure to plan what you need to get out at the end, what your income's going to look like, how is that going to be affordable for you. So we work kind of in conjunction. Believe it or not, your mortgage capacity is often the most important part of your entire settlement, because I need to know what you can borrow versus what I can give you or get you at the end to give you a level of comfort. So being completely open and honest about all of those things up front is going to be massively important. And Miranda can get you the best answer with that information. Just a bit earlier, Miranda mentioned that your lawyer can do the transfer of the house into your sole name. Family lawyers like myself can't do that. That's not what we're trained in. A conveyancing solicitor will either be instructed by the bank that you choose to do the mortgage with, or you may have a solicitor that does conveyancing as a separate department. They can handle that for you if that's what you determine. But usually the bank that you use will have their preferred solicitors who can go, right, they'll sort that for you, and then they take over that specific part. So just in case anyone thought that a family lawyer handles that, we don't. So just making that clear. But a conveyancing solicitor will do all of that, and you can either find your own or the bank will sort of give you theirs. The last one I can see here is, if I want to get a mortgage with my new partner, but my financial settlement isn't finalised, can I do this? Are there any risks? I will let you take that, Miranda, but if there's any part you'd like to answer, but it does feel more like a legal question.
So from a mortgage perspective, if you are applying for a new mortgage, any credit commitments that you currently still have in place with your previous partner will still be taken into account from a mortgage affordability perspective. So that would be my only consideration, is if there are still any joint commitments, even kind of houses, if there's not a mortgage on it, but whilst you still own that, the new lender for your new property would take into account running costs of that previous one, or any kind of joint loans, etc., if there's anything like that. So whilst you still got that financial association, anything joint there can affect your onwards affordability. And then obviously the legal considerations of that as well.
Yes, and that very much goes back to, I think, one of the points I made earlier, in that, once again, I would rather you don't invest in anything brand new, even with a new partner, until you've got a financial settlement in place that closes off everything else first. Now, I appreciate that might cause delay. It might not be what you want. I've seen the worst of every scenario in this job. So my job is to say to you, slow down, do this bit first, then move in with your new partner, so that there is no question that that is yours. There's no claims over it, all of that stuff. So just from me, that's another one of those slow down, take legal advice kind of questions. And then the very last one I can see here, Miranda, is, should we use the same solicitor for the sale of the family house and the buying of my future property?
Run it by the solicitor to see if they can take on both sides. Some will, some won't, due to conflict of interest. It depends what they're handling. If they do allow it, they might just appoint you to a different person within the firm to handle the different transactions. If you wanted to keep the buying of the new house completely separate, then obviously you can use a different firm. If internal, it can potentially, they've got that point of contact internally. If you're using a separate one, obviously they'll have to communicate with each other. But I'd check with the solicitor first, see if that's something they can offer to you.
Yes, I mean, from a practical standpoint, it would seem logical. You've got
Yeah.
one firm handling it all.
Yeah.
But think of a scenario where you're going through a divorce. You've got one solicitor handling your sale, but you've then got the same solicitor handling your ex-partner's purchase and your purchase. So it kind of muddies the water just a touch. But that's why Miranda is exactly correct. Check with the conveyancer. If they're comfortable doing it, fantastic. Let them handle the lot. If not, get a separate one and just keep those sort of chains separate. And I think that's all the questions I can see. So I just want to say thank you, Miranda. It's been absolutely informative. I think that it's a bigger thing than most people realise in my kind of line of work. So I just want to say a genuine thank you to you and Meet Margo.
No, thank you for having us on. And yeah, I love sharing my knowledge. I just love my job. So any questions off the back of it, you know exactly where we are. No, it's been great to come on with you guys and have a chat.
Miranda, what does come across is that you do love your job. That's obvious, right? So if I could give you any compliment, right, that definitely comes across. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's after the end of the work day, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having us on. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, that was navigating mortgages in divorce proceedings. I hope you found that informative. I'm seeing a lot of sort of thank yous and fab sessions and very useful and all that kind of stuff. So you're always welcome. Anyone who attends these, you are always welcome. And we love giving this information because hopefully, even if it's just a little bit that relates to you, it's going to help. So please do keep signing up. And, you know, I'm so glad that so many people turned up today. So thank you so much. So from our perspective with Stowe, on our next one, it's the 18th of November. We've got separation, surveillance and control. We've got the head of tech and economic abuse at Refuge joining me on that one. So that's the next one that comes up next month. And if you're interested, I'm sure a link will come out in all the normal ways. As ever, this will be posted on YouTube. So if you caught the end or just the beginning or whatever it is, please watch it back. I'm perfectly findable on our website. If you've got any questions that arise from this, please reach out. As you can see, all of Miranda's information is there. So if you need any queries about this, the kind of things, please reach out. I'm sure both of us are happy to answer any queries. And thanks everyone for attending, and I'll see you next month. See you then.